You ready for a weird one? This is the new Seoul Park Jelly Massacre by Korean author Cho Yi-eun. It was translated into English by Yewon Jung and published by my friends Honford Star. This is one of the most singularly bizarre novels you're ever likely to read. People have been calling it a horror novel, and I can see their point. It's also been called political, metaphorical, allegorical, all of those things, and yeah, all of that is true. But in the most unprofessional way possible, what I really want to describe this novel as is vibes. So let's get into it. The new Seoul Park Jelly Massacre is a novel almost told like a collection of short stories. Every chapter is from a different perspective, and all of it is set within this theme park in Seoul, South Korea. Our protagonists are various people who either go to visit the park or work there. We open with a little girl whose parents don't get along. She's very mature and she's able to get them to calm down and have some fun by talking to them. During that chapter, she meets another little girl who's been separated in the crowd from her mother. And later in the book, we get that mother's perspective. In our second chapter, our protagonist is a young man who works as one of the mascots. He wears a costume and he walks around talking to the kids, doing the mascot thing. He lives in a kind of dormitory with the other employees at the theme park, and he dreams of getting out and doing something different. Another protagonist is a teenage girl who has a difficult relationship with her boyfriend, and while they're at the theme park together, he breaks up with her. And one protagonist that I need to focus on is the CEO of a cleaning corporation. Very successful company, but she's also a Satanist. She appears in a few different chapters and eventually gets her own chapter, and she's part of a satanic cult. We jump around from perspective to perspective, getting to know all these different characters, sometimes from different angles. A character who is a protagonist in one story will be featured as a side character in another, and vice versa. But the title of the book refers to a jelly massacre. What in the hell does that mean? Well, most of the characters in this story, at some point during their day in this theme park, will meet a strange man. A man whose face can't be focused on. It's blurry and unclear. You can see him from your periphery, but not if you look at him directly. It's a curious and very unsettling thing. And he's giving out candy. These little jelly sweets. And he promises you that if you and someone you love eats them, you'll stay together forever. You'll be bonded together. The little girl wants to give them to her parents. The girl whose boyfriend breaks up with her thinks that she should give one to her partner. What does the jelly do? Well, it turns you to mush. Once you eat one of these jellies, you start melting down into a pink goo. You become a puddle, and anyone nearby who's done the same starts to melt with you, and this happens. The cover art on this thing is incredible, and it perfectly depicts what happens in the book. The cover art for this was done by Jiuk Choi, and oh my goodness, oh my word. This is what happens. People who eat the jelly start to become a jelly-like goop. And of course, if you're with a friend or a family member, a loved one, and you eat the jellies together, yeah, you're gonna be bonded for life. However short that life may be, and whatever that bond ends up looking like. But why? What is this all about? First of all, when we call this horror, it really feels like old school golden age horror. Monster B-movie kind of horror. At no point will you be actually frightened. But it's horror themed, it is horror tinged. It is almost a callback to the black and white horror movies of Hollywood's early years. Since people have talked a little bit about this book having political themes and ideas, I've been curious. As I was reading through it, I was trying to think about the bigger picture, what all of this means. And instead of there being a bigger picture, there's really a bunch of smaller pictures. And they all come together to make a more cohesive message for the reader, in my opinion. And that in itself is bolstered by the fact that this is a collection of short tales all set in one place. Short stories set in one big location, and smaller themes and ideas making one bigger message. Very, very clever. Very cohesive, very neat and tidy, especially for something about a jelly massacre. The book is very focused on theme parks. It is all set in a theme park. The characters talk about the theme park when they're not there, and when they are there, they want to see and do as much as they can. The people who work there are kind of disenfranchised. They don't enjoy working there. They don't enjoy their colleagues. And at one point, the boy who wears the mascot costume mentions the fact that someone else who wears the costume died of heat exhaustion while wearing it one hot summer's day. It's not a pleasant thing. And at this point, you kind of realize that The theme park is at the heart of everything. The workers are struggling, even dying there. And the people who go there have so much riding on it. They need to have a good time. The little girl whose parents argue constantly is miserable because they argue constantly, and so they go to this theme park and she hopes that it will be a distraction. It'll be a miniature vacation where they can just have fun together as a family like she always dreams they will. This couple who've been on the rocks for months and months have been going through exams. They've been studying together. Their school has added so much pressure to their lives. As individuals, they are stressed and confused and living through this kind of Kafkaesque life. Their relationship is not doing well, and maybe they will have fun on this day out, but instead they break up. So much is riding on this day at this theme park. The people who work there, as I said, are miserable, but they need this work, they need this life. The theme park is offering them financial security and even a roof over their head. People are counting on the theme park, whether they work there or whether they're tourists visiting it. But the theme park is part of the system. It is part of capitalism. They are expensive to go to, they are busy, they are crowded, they are stressful places for so many of us. They're not always fun, and they do not fix your problems. People put so much stock in the theme park. And then comes the jelly. The promise that the jelly salesman gives people, that they will stick together forever, that they'll be happy, feels very connected to the wider scope of the theme park. Things will be okay there. You'll be safe there. You can forget your troubles there. And if you eat this jelly, all your problems will be fixed. It feels like this book is about illusions. The illusion of choice, the illusion of relaxation, the illusion of things being fixed, that there is any simple, easy fix for any of our problems. We're part of a very stressful, bureaucratic system of cycles and machinery, and the theme park is part of that. And all these people come to this theme park expecting to get fixed, or at least to forget about things for a while. They eat this jelly out of desperation or hope, and they end up turning into a useless pink puddle. They eat the thing that almost seems to then eat them. It is a wildly experimental and cool concept. The novel isn't perfect, however. The one big thing about it that I didn't really enjoy was the fact that although you have all these characters that are very relatable, you don't really get any time with them. You don't get to know them. I don't remember any names at all. I'm misremembering a lot of details at this point, I think, and there are some things that feel like they go nowhere. There is a large focus on this CEO woman who's also part of a satanic cult. She features in the second story, and then maybe the 5th or 6th chapter is when she gets her own narrative to tell. And I really enjoyed her as a character. I enjoyed her quirks. I enjoyed the fact that her work is kind of inspired by her very toxic relationship with her husband and her mother-in-law, but I was struggling to see the bigger picture when it came to her as a character specifically. Thematically, what did she add to the story? She felt like she could have been her own thing. You had the Jelly Massacre and all the people who work there or visit there, and as I've said, they all meld together very nicely, pieces of a puzzle. But her, she felt like an outlier. She felt like a different story that was being told. She fit into it, but not particularly pleasantly and easily. I was curious about her, but not within the context of the story itself. I wanted to know more about her as if she was her own story. And everyone else is there to represent the themes and ideas rather than being characters in their own right. Except maybe for the little girl who kind of bookends the whole thing. I really liked her, and I wanted to get to know her and her family more. I was invested in their struggles and their family dynamic very quickly, and you don't get enough of it. I was kind of hungry for more. Apparently this novel was originally a short story that then got expanded into a full thing. And I could imagine it being expanded even more to give these characters more room to breathe. I can imagine it working really, really well as a short story in concept and character, and also working really well as a larger, more expansive novel that's maybe like 400 pages long. At 200 pages and a collection of stories within one universe facing one weird problem, it feels like it's floating in this awkward middle ground between the two. But overall, I hugely enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed the concept, I enjoyed the campiness of it, I enjoyed the kind of nostalgia feeling that you get from it, and I hugely related to what I see as the themes of bureaucracy and cycles and the way that we seek escapism, and yet that escapism is almost an illusion or part of the bigger problem and really fixes nothing at all. Absolutely fascinating. So check it out and subscribe for books.